informative message to you today. I have been giving lecture in Seoul Global Center, I guess, since the beginning of the started business. And even before that, I have worked for foreign clients for many years. Currently, I'm working in a small tax firm that handles foreigners' tax and accounting matters. My clients vary from one-man company to an airline company that have thousands of employees. In Korea, today I will mention as in my title, basic thing about setting up a company and running it, and also taxes. So I'm covering pretty much broad topics today. So let me start. And one thing, for the people who had my courses, I give about 30 minutes to 1 hour free consulting. Yeah, so it's either by email or by phone call, we can have conversation, or later on if you want an appointment with me, you can visit my office. But if I need to charge, of course, I let you know, so feel free to contact me if there is any further need. And later, there is Q&A session. I will try to give Q&A session also in the middle. So please allow me to finish the material, and when you have questions, I will give time to you in between. Today I'll give ideas to you about forms of business activity in Korea and setting up a company in Korea. Secondly, a few kinds of taxes in Korea. Today you need to remember that I'm only covering national taxes. If I compare to the USA, I'm not covering state tax, I'm only covering federal tax. But the state tax is very minimal, or sometimes 10% of federal tax. So if you understand the federal tax, the national tax, you automatically understand the state tax. However, there can be small levy of state tax that's not linked with the federal tax, such as a very small minimal fee of registration tax, but not registration tax. Just because you run the business, they impose some taxes from the local government, but it is below 100,000 Korean won per year. So, yeah, when you think about the entities in Korea, it is usually either 개인 사업자 or 법인. 개인 사업자 is sole proprietorship, in other words, individual company, or corporation. Individual company, usually it's for small sized. It doesn't have to absolutely be small sized, but people usually think for small sized. And it's quite easy to run compared to corporation. Because corporation, we always have the shareholder. Of course, it could be, say, shareholder and representative director and director, board of directors, all could be same. But for the companies like stock listed company or any company that wants to grow bigger, usually go for corporation. Minimum capital for registration. For corporation, there is shares and registered capital. However, 개인 사업자, sole proprietorship, there is no registered capital. So of course I can invest to the company, but it is not registered on the court. This ABC company is registered with 50 million. Nothing is written like that for the individual company. Sole proprietorship does not even have any court registration. And they cannot do the name check either. If you have a corporation, as I mentioned, it's a little bit for a bigger company, and it has a public point of view. And they do the name check. If there is the same name registered, you need to revise it a little bit. Again, the corporation, you have to register. You have a registered capital. So what is the minimum registered capital that is needed if you are running a corporation? It could be general corporation, they actually do not mention it on the commercial law. But I have experience making it up with a very small capital. Of course, it cannot be zero though. But everybody say that, oh, to register a company, don't you need 100 million? That's what I know. A lot of people raise those questions. It's because of many foreign company wants to go for foreign direct investment. To be recognized as foreign direct investment company, an individual also need to invest 100 million Korean won. Corporation also 100 million Korean won to be recognized as foreign direct investment company. Do you have any question on this chart? In corporation, there is shares company, which is named, let's say, like CO.KR, for a corporation company that having various kind of shares, or limited company. This is like what we understand as limited liability company is 유한회사. So there are two kind of corporation, different, let's say there are tons of a few kinds of corporation like C corporation, S corporation, and still various other corporations. In Korea, 99% falls in either two categories, even though they name it, but those are usually in the book only. It is either just corporation or a limited liability company. I didn't cover too much about the difference between two, but I just mentioned that 10 million for a limited company, but there are quite differences. If you want to know a few things, like corporation, as I mentioned, they can use convertible bond, they can issue preemptive stock or normal stock. And all the public companies, stock listed companies are corporation. But limited company is more closely held company. So limited corporation can have shareholders up to 50 listed shareholders, while normal corporation there is unlimited number of shareholders. That's why I'm again saying that stock listed company go for corporation. Amazingly, a lot of big corporations foreign companies go for limited liability company. The reason for that is if you have over a certain amount of asset, you need to go for accounting audit. Beside your tax attorney, you need to hire an outside CPA to audit your books. But being a limited liability company, regardless of your asset value, you don't need to go for auditing. That's why I'm saying they're more closely held company. Okay, any question on this page? Okay.
For individual and sole proprietorship, you have to be a national of Korea, or anyone can.
A foreigner can register
as an individual.
Yeah, as an individual company.
With the limited liability corporation, you said you could have up to 50 shareholders. Now, is there any restrictions on nationality for those 50 shareholders?
No, there is no nationality.
Could they be a non-resident?
Yeah, non-residing, legal entity is also possible to be not only individual.
Okay.
In both cases, there is no limitation. A company can be an owner of a corporation or a limited company also. And limited company can only issue a common stock, none of the other stock. Court registration not applicable for individual company. Corporation court registration is needed. That's why I say for small companies, individual company is easier to handle. If you want to change anything in the court registration, it's usually costly and takes time. Let's say my office moved from Seoul to Daegu, or any places even in Seoul, I need to change the address in the court registration and business registration. Changing things in corporation document takes time and money. While individual company, if the president of the company just visit the tax this in detail. Corporation 10% to 22%. Then you can simply think, if I'm having less net income, this will be more favorable. If I have higher income, this is the maximum amount, and this would be more favorable. I guess you could have some idea on that. Also, value-added tax, both are applicable. Both are applicable. So both company can issue tax invoices, and as Mr. Chu just briefly said, sales VAT is similar to sales tax. Both company can issue tax invoice and collect sales taxes. Yeah. But even though I said individual company is less onerous to make, still both of them need lease agreement to make a company. A lot of foreigners say that, Christy, I don't need an office. I don't need a fixed place. Can I register an office, a company in Korea? The tax office, all in the tax register application form, there is place for office place, and they always request for office lease agreement. So that's.
Wouldn't that be in your residential?
Yeah, that depends on business. Depends on business.
Can you register a non-profit organization?
Yeah, registering a non-profit organization is possible, but the requirement is very tough. They do that very selectively. So one of person that exchanged email with me tried to do that because it's charity work, but it was very difficult to convince those organizations.
Which organizations?
The tax office said that you need some kind of, so at last they decided to go under UNICEF instead of having their own entity. Establishing their own entity as non-profit organization was very tough to convince the tax office. And in Korea, different with what generally people could think, hospital is a non-profit organization. But aren't they working for profit? No. Hospital, a very small sole proprietorship, individual hospital are just individual company, not non-profit organization. But the bigger ones that we know of, like Camp Byungwon, the university hospital, or big hospitals that we know of are non-profit organization. Also, schools are non-profit organization, or other big charity organizations we know of are non-profit organization. There was a case that Netherlands Education Department came to Korea, and that they wanted to have a small entity that's only working for the education system. They say they're not working for profit business. Later on, they got the registration only by showing that they are registered as such in the home country. Then the tax office released the non-profit organization certificate. Process of establishing a business entity. I didn't know my chart in this color. The words are not shown very well. I feel sorry today. I should use the brighter color. Wish it doesn't make it sleepy. I made it in a very short process and make it very compact, but it has a tremendous implication if you think of it in the real business. To open a real business, actually paperwork is nothing. What underlies below your real business matters, I guess. What the real market wants for the business is what really matters in your business plan. So research and business plan, and consider related regulation. I think that's tougher in some type of business, because let's say that not many people know that, oh, headhunter, oh, you need the regulation, you needed a kind of approval, permit to do that. So people raise their can be either by your own fund or getting fund from others. When you get the fund from others, it could be either treating them as shareholder or treating them as creditor, getting loan from the other parties. And also the operation setup and launching their business. Okay, is there any question on this?
The second part is an important part, considering the regulations. Where would we go to find that
Yeah.
if we didn't?
Good question. If you go for, let's say that I have no idea, when I try to open a restaurant, I have no idea. When I visit the tax office, they say that, oh, you are missing something. So they direct you where to go. I want to apply for a hagwon. Then tax office will say, oh, this is not the first place you should come. You should go for Ministry of Education first, and then you need to go this step first. So there are line of businesses that you need a qualification first. Even like,
How do you know this that if I want to open a hagwon, that I have to go to the tax office first to know the step, or can I go search internet?
Actually, I made the example of hagwon, but I think establishing hagwon is one of the most tough.
Oh, for a restaurant.
Yeah. For a restaurant. For the restaurant, I think you need only the kind of, that you took the hydrogenic classes from school office. Yeah. So that's only one part I think you need from the, before you go for tax office. So even for other things, yeah, some of them are very complicated, but as I mentioned, like hagwon or headhunter business, those were complicated. Yeah, for general business, like internet shopping mall, it was rather, I would say, taking like 1 day program. So that was
What office did you say for the hygiene certification?
I think two offices. Also for the funding and registration, I briefly mentioned that you can get a loan also. Can I also be a shareholder and also give loan to the company? Because corporation, it's a separate entity. If I'm an individual company, of course, I guess I cannot pay myself as a salary, or I cannot give loan to myself, and that's being weird. But in a corporation, that's a totally separate entity. So me being a shareholder, or me being a director, also can give loan to the corporation. But since it's totally related party transaction, you should be very careful. Since a related party transaction, if you give too less interest to the shareholder, that's giving too much benefit to the corporation. And it could be other way around. So you need to write down a kind of simple loan agreement mentioning the term, the period, and the interest rate. Before I move on to taxes, is there any question in operation and or the business setup?
For corporation, it's different. For corporation, it's different between the Chusikwa and Yuanwasa. Is the number of shareholders and the amount of investment as a beginning. And beyond therefore the Chusikwa, you don't get it's just you can choose any amount.
Yeah, it could be as low as 1 million.
No, as
So tax is my specialty, so I moved on to my specialty part. So there are three big kinds of ordinary income tax, the other are value-added tax, and the other are corporate income tax. But these are in my handout. When you see the line, it will not be easy, very easy for you to understand. But if you see the example, do you ever have exchanged tax invoices? Or do you have any idea what this is?
Tax receipt.
So this and this are 1 cent. This and this are 1 cent. Anybody catch where the difference is? I'm doing a little trick.
And have it next to each other.
This and this. Yes, the color is different. And right. You have the best eyesight. You make the identical two, and then you keep one part and give to your client one part. So one part, red part say this is for the seller. 공급자 보관료. For the seller. And the other part said for the buyer. So again, you keep the red one. If you issue it, you keep the red one. The blue one, you have it when you buy something. Yeah. So you, in one page sheet, yeah, it has like blue color and red color. Before you usually detached it and give it one to the other party. This is where all the value-added tax starts from. Again, if you have a lot of red one, that means you had a lot of sales. If you had a lot of blue one, that means you had a lot of purchase. So I said that even sole proprietorship can issue this. The corporation can issue this. But if I don't have a company, Christy didn't register any company, so Global Center wants to pay me. Can I issue this without having business registration with my ID number? No. Yeah, you cannot issue it with your ID number. Not issue. This is if you put the dashes in here, it usually fit with the registration number. Usually. This is how the tax registration number looks like. 3-digit, 2-digit, 5-digit. If you put dashes, it will perfectly match with the registration number part. This is how the Korean ID number looks like. 13-digit. But of course, it's not because of the digit problem, but only the people who have registration can issue this. Unfortunately, actually, this is a little bit different with nowadays using electronic tax invoice, how it looks, but it's almost the same. Because currently, the electronic tax invoice only says 전자 세금 계산서. Yeah. But does everybody have? I'm sorry if I'm going too deep. People who doesn't understand tax invoice, maybe it would be too much ahead if I already talk about electronic tax invoice. But nowadays, from year 2010, the government is recommending you to issue electronic tax invoice. about this is it's named 세금계산서, and people say this is tax invoice. But sometimes they issue it after they get paid. So you paid them and they issue invoice. Yeah, that's nonsense. But because this is named tax invoice, but this is one of the only legally accepted tax invoice. So whenever there is transaction between business people, yeah, tax invoice shall be exchanged when there was supply of goods or services. The sales value should be shown in the 공급가액, and usually 10% of the sales value is written in the tax part. So when I buy something, I usually already paid 10% on top of the price. And the selling party already collected for me the 10% as the value-added tax. But he is not only holding it and keeping it, he just withhold it and pay it to the tax office. While I can claim it back. Claim it back. So anyway, it's a zero sum. So you just prepaid it and get it back. In other words, you just received it and hit withhold the amount that needs to be paid to the tax office. Then why would the tax office recommend you so hardly to exchange the tax invoice? When all the amount is going to be paid back, all amount is going to be collected back. Because then they know that what the transaction was. That there was such transaction. That's why they're asking you to issue tax invoice. But not for every transaction the 10% is added. If I do the export, I do not charge my overseas client 10%. But I'm buying accessories in Korea and shipping it to Kuala Lumpur. But I already paid 110 from my vendors. But I'm selling it with 0% VAT on it. I still can get refund of what I paid. That is what I want to cover.
Where do we register the sales tax for?
When you register the
Where?
company
Where?
in tax office.
Which tax office? Where?
Tax office is decided from your business place. Let's say that I'm living in Bangkok and I have my office in Yongsan. I need to go for Yongsan tax office to register my company. And when the tax registration is released, as I mentioned, they have this visit.
What is the name of the tax office?
세무서.
Can you write that down? So this is where you register your sales tax.
When this number is released, you don't need to register anything beside this to do the VAT return. With this number, you do everything. Corporate income tax return. So this is like ID number of the company.
What's the Korean name for Korean company tax service? Like your company, what do you call it? So let's say a foreigner like one of us, we have a business, we have sales, and then we need to do quarterly taxes. But obviously, most of us won't understand the Korean taxing system, so we actually hire a tax company. So what is the name of this company that we actually hire?
You can either, so there are two kind of licensed people who do this. You can use either CPA or CTA.
What do you call that in Korean? You just say CPA or CPA?
tax office also 세무사.
세무서. 세무서. 세무사. Yeah, a lot of people get very confused. 세무서 means place.
Does Korean also have an English version of the FTA, Korean FTA?
Korean FTA.
The-
With various
Very-
countries,
yeah,
right?
Because I think we're all from different countries, and then I think we all want to do business with here and something related to our country, and we may either export or import.
Yeah, so the
things,
duty is
whether-
very
right, whether
prudential,
whether
matter, I
we
guess.
do an English school or maybe even a restaurant, something like that. So I think that's very important. Where can we find that? I know there is a book that is published.
Maybe, I think it's Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Economy.
Is that a book that we can check out or find?
Ministry of Economy, you might want to check up their website. Actually, a few days ago, there was a radio program that was a debate from two politicians that say that, oh, your department made the wrong translation. In some sensitive sentences, I think the other party made slight mistakes. So I don't know if it's really publicly opened yet, fully publicly opened yet. Yeah, because a few days ago, I heard that there was FTA between two countries. I don't know how soon they release it.
Well, actually, there is a public information where anyone can go and get that. We're talking about new information that has to be updated. We're talking about whether that is updated or not. But there's always information that is current with every country. So whether there is or there is not FTA, if there's not an FTA, what type of goods and services we can bring that we do not have to pay taxes, or we have to pay taxes, but it will say how much. And I think this kind of goes to my next question is, where can we find English information of like import and export taxes based on different type of goods, whether it's whether it is food, whether it is a service that we can in or out. And I know there's different taxes for different products. So where is there?
Yeah, if you know the exact HS code, then that's import, the code that is.
Well, I mean it's not something
Clotra,
that
go to Clotra, they've got a book and you just tell them and
Yeah.
culture.
I tried to do the research by knowing the HS code. I went into the certain website, and then they asked from where it is importing, to find out that there was zero taxes and importing a construction bearing from China to Korea.
In America, there is a book that they publish every year. I don't know if Korean actually does that.
there is a
Yeah,
book.
there is a book.
There's a book.
There's literally.
Do you guys know the name of that Korean book?
No, but there's, if you go to Kocha and just say, I would like to know this information, there is a woman who has a book and
Yeah,
she can show you the name.
Yeah.
She just reads through it and she says 8%, 10%.
But what is this website that you're mentioning?
Yeah.
Because I guess it's more up to date. This one.
Yeah, but I haven't checked it myself. But usually a lot of information are in the ministry. Yeah.
Do you have the website?
Economy. I don't remember, but maybe let me check with my mobile in the break time. If I get the website address, I'll write down.
Does a publishing company goes to tax exception? Publishing company.
Oh, yeah, publishing company is tax exempt. So there are general tax company, general tax transaction, and tax exempt transaction, and zero tax transaction, which I will cover very soon. Unless you have other questions in line with this. Okay. So value added tax is a form of consumption tax. we call it consumption tax, but I think it will be easier for you to understand as sales tax. From the perspective of the buyer, it is a tax on purchase price. So 10% is added on what you purchase. From the perspective of the seller, it is a tax only on the value added to a product, material, or service. In principle, value added tax applies to all provisions of goods and services, with some exceptions. If I make it in a small chart, I think that sentence would make it would be easier to understand. Sorry, this doesn't look 10% of the box, does it? In every process, let's say that whatever it is made, let's say a computer or car or vehicle or whatever, let's say that it's going through. So this is retailer, this is wholesaler. Let's say this is manufacturer. So manufacturer sell to wholesaler, wholesaler sell to the retailer, retailer sell to the ending client. The manufacturer, this is his cost. He adds 10% and sells to the wholesaler. If this is cost of the manufacturer, he adds 10% on top of this and sell to the wholesaler. So wholesaler, but of course manufacturer, they only withhold 10% and pay it to the tax office, while wholesaler, they paid 10% to manufacturer and get a refund. So let's say this, for him, it cost him, let's make it very simple. If this was 100, this become 110, right? And then, of course, on top of margin, I'm making a very simple case as if there is no margin. I'm thinking about only 10% value added. And then also the transaction between wholesaler and retailer. Sorry, can you look at it easily? Or should I move a little bit? All the people here. This person also add 10% on top of 110. So the value become 121.
But B is going to be refund with 10%. Isn't it supposed to be 10% over 100 instead of 110?
So this is anyway zero sum, but the product fee goes a little bit because of the value. It's going on top of it. Of course, by this person, they are getting a refund, and the withheld amount is paid to it, but the price is then, this person will deem it as he bared all the cost of it. So when this is sold to the ending client, then it is another 10% added. As I explained, the ending client, if it's a person who does not have tax registration, cannot do the tax return to get the fees refunded. So ending client just bears it. That's why we buy it in an expensive price, because of all this
Yeah,
transaction.
but and then you bear much more than 10%.
Right.
That's why it doesn't
Much
make
more
sense.
than compared to the very beginning cost.
Yeah.
But only 10% of the person just ahead of me. Only 10% of the person ahead of me. Only 10% of the person ahead of me. Because of this, for some goods, they make it zero rate, like necessities, agricultural product, water, or tissues. Yeah. And if the ending client is a business person, they get refund also.
Even if he's not buying things for the company?
Then there is no way that they get all refunds through reporting VAT return. But an individual who does not have a company does not need to file any VAT return and cannot file any VAT return either. As I mentioned, only with the tax registration number you can file taxes.
Also, like as when you go to e-money, while you cannot check.
Yeah. If the ending client is overseas client, right? Overseas client, then we don't charge 10%, we sell it with this price. But the importing party, from the importing country, they add the 10%.
So the person is gonna pay 33,000, 33.
Compared with the very beginning.
So
But
it's
they
more than
get-
30%.
But they get refund from the transaction to transaction.
But the end consumer is paying actually 30%, more than 30% tax.
If you cannot get the refund, it looks so. So that's why they are trying to reduce the chains a lot. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of transactions that are VAT exempt or zero VAT rate.
Does this create a system then where you have people functioning more as businesses than as individuals for tax purposes? Like for example, if I want to go down to the Pyeongnijeom and buy a Coke, I'm going to pay as an individual, I'll pay a value-added tax on that. But if I bought it and marked it off as a corporate expense, I could get my 10% back.
Yeah, you can get 10% back. But an individual cannot get 10% back.
Isn't there 현금 계산서?
Yeah, 현금 계산서, that's making it an expense, not the refund of VAT. Not the direct VAT refund of the 10% you additionally paid.
You get that refunded when you do your taxes.
So 110 that you pay for the Coke, 110 is treated as expense. That could be offset with your sales. But you cannot get the 10 directly as cash
Right, right,
refund
right.
from the tax office. So zero tax rate shall apply to the supply of goods and services as exporting good, service applied to overseas or international navigation service by ship and aircraft and others. Also tax exempt. Yeah, zero tax rate editing business, your company registration is released as tax exempt registration. So you cannot issue that tax invoice I showed, but there is similar type of invoice without showing the 10% on it.
But you cannot, I mean, if you're a publishing company, you still purchase something and you pay tax for that.
Yeah, but you cannot
You
get a
cannot
refund.
claim that?
Yeah. So 10% VAT transaction, 0% VAT transaction, 0 tax exempt transaction. For this, I think it's pretty clear. You paid it, you get refund. 0% is like export. Export, you get a refund. Tax exempt transaction, whatever you pay, you cannot get a refund. One of my clients is meat selling company. So they are in the livestock area. So they purchased like sauces or whatever, paying the VAT, but because their sales are VAT exempt sales, they cannot get a refund. So is your work want to do publishing book, or if your client can sell the book and if I get the commission working as an agent, the agent work is 10% VAT transaction. But publishing book, selling book is VAT exempt transaction. So it's quite different.
And which category is Hagwon?
Hagwon is, I believe, VAT exempt. Because that's also categorized as manpower service. But general consulting firm is not registered as manpower service. So VAT filing is done by Connor on the return. For the
So
first,
there is no advantage on being zeros, tax exempted one, because if you are not, if you are the 10% VAT, the end consumer pays for that. But if you are exempted, you get the cost, not your end consumer. You will.
yes.
So
But let's do that. In other words, your client think your price is price competitive. Because you don't charge
compared to
10%.
what? Because everybody else is in the
The
same
same
price
product.
point. So
Like as I mentioned, like editing business, he said that he can also do that under the consulting. But if he charges 10% on top of it, the price will be less competitive in the market. But anyway, yeah, you're correct. The paying the purchase VAT and not getting refund is not the best.
If we have I have a business in the Philippines, say we take let's say we take $1 million, the agent is going to want to take 20%. They're the ones that are going to have to pay the tax in this country. The other 80% would be sent to the Philippines to cover costs on the services that are provided in another country. So only the agent is liable for the tax. Is that right?
So the agent gets only 20% of the
20 to
transaction.
30% they're liable to pay tax. Our services, we pay tax in the Philippines. Is that correct?
So it depends on how they are doing the transaction. As I mentioned, export or import, there is different implication for the taxes. Yeah. So if it's generated, the business income is generated in Korea, yes, you're liable for Korean taxes. Yeah. But let me get that again in my break time.
Okay.
Okay, so this is due by 25th of the following quarter.
The answer.
Again, even though it's named tax invoice, sometimes we exchange it after the amount is paid. Okay, before I move
I would suggest that maybe in the future, if you actually brought an actual company tax form, and then if you like brought that copy and pass it to everyone, and then write it on the board, okay, this is your company. This year you made yield. You have, this is your expense. You have one employer. This is your, their salary. And then you should actually have us go through that. And
Calculate,
Yeah.
make a.
Yeah.
I have it here. I have it here.
well, I mean, tell the original tax.
It's original tax
The one
form.
Oh.
Because the one
This is sample of tax invoice, but I think he wants like full tax return form.
Yeah, this is just a receipt.
yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the
Tax return
your
booklet.
Yeah, you actually, I'm talking about the form that you need to fill out. Like when you have your company, yeah, you have to fill out the tax form and then register it to the tax office.
So you want a business application form?
Well, I think that would be more important.
But they have it in a global center that the one is, I start I get also from them.
Right.
And if you do that's something that's registered for, they could have it in last time I think when I was in Vietnam, so I got some systems.
Right. But I mean, their tax system is much different, so if we could actually go through that, I mean, I'm saying that for future, that might be much more.
Is it original to something?
In the exit survey, I also said, like, Christy, why don't you give some discussion time? Having maybe brainstorming, exchange, your thoughts, and could maybe delivering the material could be more effective.
In other countries, even in Asia countries like in Taiwan, they will actually have an English version of the film where you could just, they will just give you a very simple, it's a individual company, it's an S corporation, it's a limited, you just pick one. And then it's just dual language. It has the local Taiwanese and then underneath there's English. So both people, local in the corner, can do the same thing and go to the operation. And I think that's something that I actually put it in this recommendation. I hope you guys would do that too, but Korea really needs that.
But I mean, there are lots of reports already. If you go online, you can see KPMG, Ernst & Young, all of the big accountancy firms produce reports year by year of the tax breakdown.
No, I'm saying that for an individual person, we need to register our taxes 4 times a year. So you're starting a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So you need to register to the Korean government 4 times a year the income that you made, and you need to register your expenses that you actually have made within your company 4 times a year.
It's a 12-month system. It's a year-end accounting.
Right, but you need to do that 4 times a year, not 1 time a year like the US. But what I'm saying is that you need to register that to the Korean government, but if there was a simple English form, you could just literally fill that out, give it to the tax office, and you'll be done.
But I mean, there isn't.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, that they need something like that.
We're not the government, we can't change it.
Well, actually, we start, so that's why we could actually request that. So I hope it's because we really need it in order to.
They have like translation version of already made tax return, but they don't have the guideline book as you mentioned. Like if you file 1040 in the US, if you have energy to do that, anyone can do it. But in Korea, you have the energy.
Yeah. Can you write this down? I talked to Mr. Cheh that person. He gave me a website where we could go to do the national tax system, and he said it's in English. This is nts.go.pr. Maybe you guys want to write it down.
This is the National Tax Service website, and there is English bar on it. But there wasn't many people saying that they had satisfying information there. It is limited. They have like about tax treaties, so they have some information, full information, but not so much for SMEs.
Yeah, I think you guys need to hire like one of these people and translate that website to English.
Okay, so I covered the quarterly return, the VAT return. For the yearly return, then I need to provide my full financial statement to the tax office per year. Because in the full financial statement, in the bottom line, it will show how much I made in the year. In the bottom line, it will show what my net income is. My net income is similar to my tax base. So the income tax is not paid on the total revenue I made. They subtract all the related business expense, and from your tax base, the tax rates are applied. So for corporation, for 200 million or less, the tax rate is 10%. From 200 million to 20 billion, it is 20%. So because this 22% is actually recently made, the last line is actually recently made to impose taxes to conglomerates. Because they think they pay too less taxes, they impose the same 20%, they raised by 2% for the conglomerates.
How much is 200 million in US dollars?
About 180.
Think of it as a 200,000. Think of the M as a K, thousand, so it's a 200,000.
Thank you.
20 million?
How is that range so massive?
So there
It's
wouldn't
not.
be.
It's not. It's this interval. This is just a one example. So if the 200 million to 20 billion is, I'm sorry, I was wrong. That is.
Yeah, that is massive.
I was looking at the individual. Sorry.
This is how the tax law is made. For over 30 years, there was only two brackets. Suddenly, for year 2012, they made third bracket. Maybe they thought if you have net income over 20 billion, they're not happy of imposing 20%.
According to this, I mean, from a tax perspective, it makes sense to keep your company under 200 million.
Yeah. To keep your net income under 200 million makes sense in tax perspective. But it doesn't mean if I become 210 million, I immediately get 20%. That's not the case. Up to 0 to 200 million, it's 10%. Right? 0 to 200
But you still
million,
need more.
it is 10%. And then only 10 million gets 20%. Yeah, only. I explain it as progressive rate, but how can I make foreigners understand it easier?
So the income
For both corporations.
No.
So first 200 million.
I think the important thing here is that if you have a corporation, you're paying two separate taxes. So it looks like in here it looks like you want to do the corporation because you only pay 10%, chances are, but you don't. Because if you have a corporation, you pay the corporate tax and you pay the individual tax. If you have an individual company, you just pay the individual tax. You don't pay the corporate tax.
Why do you pay the individual tax if you have the corporation?
Because the corporate entity and the individual is separate. Because when you're saying corporation, you and your company is a separate entity. And so basically your company will pay that tax. That money is not yours. When you get that money, when you take that money out of the corporation and put it in your bank account, then the corporation is paying you, and so you need
As
to
an individual, not
as
as
an
a
individual,
company,
right?
so-
So you don't want to have a corporation because technically you're paying two taxes. So
Yeah.
you're paying that individual tax again.
Actually, that's the very important comment that I need to make. Because let's say that there is a one-man company, anyway, as a corporation or as a sole proprietorship. then it looks like corporation is much better in tax perspective. But when it wants to reach my pocket, the corporation needs to pay me as salary. So again, my company makes money, and then for it to move on to my pocket, I need to pay again salary income tax.
But if you have just your own company, not a corporation company, you just eliminate that corporation and you just have the individual tax.
For the individual
But
tax,
if you have an individual company, don't you have to what is that? To report your income as an individual beside your company income?
So this,
If you're an
It's not
individual,
wages, it's a dividend if you're a sole trader. So if the company is you,
Yeah.
then the amount of money you're taking from that company doesn't count as a wage, it counts as a dividend of the profit.
so if you're if you have an individual company, that money that's inside the company, that's your money. So it doesn't matter whether it goes from the company bank account to you could just go back and forth without paying taxes.
so sole corporation, the company is myself. I can withdraw from the company as I wish. In other words, I can inject money as I wish. But if though I withdraw the money, it is not treated as company expense. It's just moving from left pocket to right pocket. So it's not expense deductible, and I don't need to
But
pay
what about
salary.
your personal expense? Like, I don't know, you pay for your daughter's school.
Mhm.
Is it taken
It's not
as
business
expensive?
That's not a business expense.
But and then on your individual perspective, not as the company, you are supposed to report these on your income, right? And you even get refund as far as I understand.
Yeah. Again, like education expense, medical expense, or my personal insurance expense, those are refundable for salary income earner. Once a year, there is yearly salary income tax settlement. You provide a lot of receipts to your employer. Sometimes they give you 13th month salary. We name it year-end salary income tax adjustment. We name it 13th month salary because you spent a lot, you get a refund. That is for salary income tax earners. So sole proprietorship, they cannot pay the president a legitimate salary because it's again moving from your pocket to another your pocket. In other words, but you can withdraw the company money at your will. Corporation, when it needs to pay yourself, you can get it only by the name salary or dividend.
Then you have to pay
For
taxes
sure,
on that.
right. And you need to pay taxes on it. But of course, I guess you can adjust. When the corporation is making big profit, maybe I increase my salary. Then company pays less corporate income tax and I pay a lot of salary income tax. Then you can design it. So,
You get IRS payment.
okay. But if I give you a simple example, if I earn 70 million, it's below 200 million bracket, so 10% is taxable. If the tax base is 70 million, the payable tax is 7 million. When the tax base is 700 million, then the first 200 million is 10%, and 100 million above 200 million is 20%. Total payable tax is 40. So you can see that this is about 4 times above, but the payable tax is much bigger. Because this is only in 10% bracket, but this is in 10% bracket and 20% bracket. So I have example over 20 billion. I have none of those plans. But another example for individual company, sole proprietorship, in corporation taxes, I need to pay salary income tax if I want to withdraw. But to reach the tax basis, as I mentioned, it's similar to the net income. But for SMEs, for sole proprietorship, tax office have kind of expense rate. Basically, they recommend you to have all the revenues, all the expenses, and reach the net income. So if I have 100 revenue, of course, instead of having 20 expense, having 90 expense would be better for my tax perspective. Because if I have 20, that means I have 80 as net income, which my tax base is high. But if it's 90, I have only small tax expense. Then I need to try very hard to collect all the receipts. And I'm taking off from taxi. Oh, taxi agency, please give me the tax receipt. Every time, going to restaurant, every single time, which I get so many complaints.
One question is the receipt, so you have to submit regularly.
That's
also
the-
exactly after one. After 2 or
Oh,
3
I
months.
have Q&A session in 10-20 minutes. Okay. Then they say, oh, Christy, you make my wallet so thick. You're making me so tired. Please make my life easy. So for SMEs, tax office have very favorable system. For very small companies, they say, oh, in such business, even though you cannot collect one receipt, we think your business will have this percentage expense rate. So, yeah, Emily, maybe your business, please pay tax on this, even though you couldn't collect any receipts. This is beautiful system, only applicable for individual company when your sales is very small.
Under which amount?
It depends on the business to business.
This is no matter what the minimum you will get 30% or just like that.
I'm making example for some business, like manufacturing business, this will be high expense rate. For agent business, this will be low expense rate. For, let's say, the rental business, tax office thing, you think you almost have no expenses. So they will be very small expense rate.
Like for
They would have like 20% expense rate. Then I have to pay tax on 80%. So it means it's better for me to collect receipts. But then for restaurant business, this varies from 40 to 60%. But as I mentioned, this is only for SMEs going for individual company when their sales volume is small. But it's different from business to business. Consulting business below 24 million. You can apply for this per year. When your sales volume is below 24 million, you can use this method. This method is expense rate method in Korea. Simple expense rate. Simple expense rate.
For example, I'm doing internet business, so I don't have many expenses since I'm working from home. So let's say my expenses only to pay the server domain fee yearly. So to get more tax, I have to collect the receipt on my
Right.
personal using.
On your business related use. But of course, some expenses you cannot tell very easily. Let's say that my dinner expense. tax office would not know if it's for my family or for my business. Yeah, but for my medical expense, they don't treat it as business expense. So this,
Just if you use your judgment, if you get too many questionable expenses, you get audited. So in order to avoid that audit, you need to make sure that your expenses are business. A lot of times, I mean, personal things can be like, a lot of the business can look like personal. For example, if you take the client out, that can be active business.
those are less judgmental. What tax office pick out easily is when I get deduction of my spouse who already have income. If I claim her as dependent, tax office find it so quickly because my spouse's ID number will already be released to the tax office. They say that you got wrong deduction. That comes out so easy.
What are other ones that come out very easy?
Like as I mentioned, for salary income tax earners, your personal expenses like medical expenses or charity expenses can be deductible. If you donate to.
I mean, what are some red flags?
Oh yeah, those things. Yeah, like medical expenses. Usually people say that people made up receipts so far before 10 years ago. But nowadays, it can be cross-checked so easily with pharmaceutical companies or hospitals. So those are red flags. If I claim the medical expenses or donation expense that doesn't exist, those come out easily.
Somebody should have told you to eat that.
Also, the corporation card. Yeah, that's very sensitive issue. Corporation need to use corporation card for entertainment expense. Yeah. Let's say that I'm director of ABC company. Today I need to bring my client out for alcohol. If I use my personal card, the tax office do not accept it. I need to use my corporation card for entertainment expense. But still, for corporation card, it needs to be used as business. But a lot of directors or representatives use it for very personal reason. And that's always being audited for public companies. It's very popular. I think it comes at least once a month in newspaper. And they claim it was for business, for very private uses. Paying the tuition fee for their children with corporation card, those are very prevailing. And it is problematic. But in such case, if I used the corporation card to pay my children's school fee, what is the tax consequence? What is the tax consequence? First, it shouldn't be deductible as company expense, right? Second, the person who used it should get taxed as salary income. Because instead of company paying me and me paying the tuition fee, it's like company pay the tuition fee directly. So I paid less salary income tax.
Are there any other individual company red flags that we should be aware of? Like, I know like in the US there's like big that but I think most of us probably will do less corporations and more individual.
More individual, I see.
Use that as
Yeah. This applies same as corporation, but not individual. But if you have consecutive deficit for a long time, tax officers usually give a keen eye on you. Why are you having consecutive losses? Are you using some fraud method to do so? Also, if your net income is fluctuating year by year, then tax office I said, oh, I don't think we hided anything. Why are you starting small tax audit? They see that statistically it's stood up. And I said, why? They think compared to the expenses, they think that the sales is small. They did similar research with a similar type of businesses. Let's say that for other businesses, this was 70%. For this company, this was 90%. But I said, oh, this is correct figure. I have every backed up data. And then they say, didn't you hide any cash sales? So they're retroactively thinking that you might not reported all your sales. Because like 5 or 10 years ago, not too many people used credit card. So there was flexibility in reporting the cash sales. But nowadays it seems, oh, okay. So, but still there are some places that cashes are largely used. That is the tax office and the dentist and plastic surgery. Yeah. And also, I think for some Hapons, still cashes are used. So for those cash sales business, tax office still, yeah, it is looking back on it.
I don't know if this applies or not, but here in Korea they're always focusing on if you're a foreigner or if you're Korean. For example, I had some even though this involves savings, I got taxed as a foreigner. But then they told me I could be taxed as a Korean because I've been here for more than a year. I don't know if this is the same for when you're an individual company, because they may treat, I don't know if they treat the company as foreign, or even though you're registered in Korea, because the owner is foreign, you can be treated as a foreign, or is it a local Korean? And if so, is there a different tax?
Oh no, there is
Or
no
is the same for
different tax, and just because you are a foreigner, I don't think the tax office come to you more often. Actually, I think it could be a little bit favorable. Since you can see that there's so limited source in Korean taxes. In other words, they don't follow you too much if you are foreign individual, because not full English service. So they're also limited in But for big companies, they still do the routine tax audit almost every 5 years. Because after 5 years, it's statute of limitation expires after 5 years. So for big companies, you can expect them to come in every 5 years. But for individual company, they usually do not come to you for tax audit, but for as VAT return or for like export business, sometimes they don't understand the documents, so they might want to know if this is how this transaction happened. There can be third-party transaction or even four-party transaction also. So sometimes they're confused and they give a ring.
You just want to save in receipts, business expenses. What if you work from home? Is that a factor in your life? Like rent?
Then you don't have your rental expense, right? If you own the house, you'll not pay the rental fee, right?
But if you're renting and you live and you work from home?
Then you rather ask your landlord to issue the tax invoice to your company. That's the best way.
So you could do it.
Yeah.
What's going to happen for the deposit for a house?
Key money, if it's registered as your company, then key money is the asset of your company, which is refundable. Yeah, I think key money also works for the company.
Does it have to be a high amount?
No, there's no limitation. you think like this rate, actually there is a huge table in National Tax Service saying that. So I made very easy example. If you earn 1 million, your employer needs to actually deduct about 2.4 thousand and pay you the rest. If your monthly salary is around 2 million, this is what your employer needs to deduct before paying you.
It's a lot more, right?
But here I'm not considering any of social insurances.
So maybe you could use this as an example. So we have a company, we have one employer, okay, and so this employer we need to pay this income and income tax to this employer and to the government. What other you can see by this graph that how much the income tax we need to save and register to the government. What other type of benefits and also insurance or things like that that we need to give to our employees?
So besides the taxes, there are 4 insurances. Yeah. Which I will write down later in the chart. I'm writing down all the charts. So for example, if you are paying 5 million to one of your staff, then you should deduct around 734,000 as taxes before paying to your staff.
Is there any term how long our employee will work for us? Like more than 3 months, more like how many? Because like small business, we tend to change our worker very often. So how can we calculate?
Yeah, so what is the difference between part-time worker and
Do you have
and
the lecture for labor law? You have the labor law? I think the labor law section, the person will clearly make differences between freelancer, permanent worker, and part-time.
So these tax apply for permanent worker who works more than 1 year for us.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, you can make contract.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though this was the first day he worked, he could be hired as permanent worker.
Okay, let's say this worker A just worked for me like 1 month and it's come to my tax deduction period. So I have to pay for him even though he only worked for me like for 1 month.
If the contract was as permanent worker, yes. Okay. Also, so before I will talk about a special tax incentive for foreign workers on their wages and salary receivable by end of this year with the 15% flat tax rate.
They're gonna refund us?
Uh-huh.
They're gonna refund us 50%?
Oh, no. This means instead of going to this chart, the foreigner can have the option to go only 15% tax rate. This chart, how tax office calculated 2.4 thousand is there is salary income deduction. So from 1 million, they did some salary income deduction and then applied 6% to 38% to reach this figure.
But is it less than 15%?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to
Why
say.
am I gonna?
Yeah, but if this salary goes up and up, let's say 10 million or 20 million or 30 million per month, then it is even higher than just applying 15%. So 15% is favorable for those usually whose yearly salary is above 300 million. So this 15% flat
So
rate.
there's no limit for the 15%.
Right, there's no limit. But it is not 15% flat rate without any deduction, right? So if they choose go for progressive rate, then going for flat rate. For 5 million, still progressive rate. But if you reach higher and higher figure, there is a break even when the 15% flat rate is favorable, and it's almost when your monthly income is as high as 30 million, which makes around 300 million per year. So most of the workers, the progressive rate is favorable. For few directors,
So that is the current law for this year.
yeah, only for this year. All kind of tax favor are sunset clauses, so they have definite time for expiration.
Where did this one come from?
Mhm.
Where did this one come from? This law?
Oh, this law is from when?
Yeah.
Oh, this have been, the similar tax favor have been existing over 15 years. The rate have been slightly changed for many years, but usually through the end of the year they say one year more extension, 2 more year extension. But this time they haven't announced anything yet, so we believe this will be over by end of the year. But we don't know.
Unless they extend that law.
Yeah, unless they extend. So regarding the insurances, I think we need to exchange by email because I need to cover this. So for tax saving, I think I explained the credit card part and Korean tax invoice. The last thing is maybe the 현금 영수증. 현금 영수증. If you visit the tax office, they can issue you a blue card that says 현금 영수증. And when you pay cash to any places, they can issue the 현금 영수증. So those helps your business. So with your spending, after the tax filing is done, some of the tax can be refunded. Of course, this is too much exaggerated.
So this also refers to any foreigner with any type of visa.
Of the
You
현금
can go to
영수증?
Japan. There's a limitation.
Since I'm not the foreigner, there was one student that she did it without any difficulty.
But if you're a student, you don't have to make income statements. Only if you have a salary here.
But
I mean,
I think you need for an ID card, not with passbook. Can you do it with passport?
I mean, yeah, but if you're a student, you do have the other card here.
Yeah, I think a lot of
You don't have any income statement.
Okay, is there any question?
With the income tax from the perspective of an employer, obviously you withhold the income tax paid by the employees. Is it annually that you then have to pay that to the tax office? And if it is annually, is it in March? And if it's not in March, when is it?
Oh. Usually in Korean, the salary date is around end of the month.
Uh-huh.
The employer, pays you with deducting the taxes.
No, so if I am the employer,
Yeah, then he need to pay to the tax office by 10th of the following month.
10th of the following. And then also, with the deductions, is it on us then we have to make the calculations for the deductions before
Right.
we withdraw it?
Yeah, the company needs to make deduction. So it is usually 10th of the following month, but for the company that has below 20 employees, tax office think maybe doing monthly return is too much for you. You can do semi-annual return, only filing the returns on twice a year, July and January. So you withhold from January to June and pay to the tax office on 10th of July. So you can do the return that way also.
You said that 20 employees?
Yeah, below 20 employees.
Does all of this apply in the same way if you have a branch company of a foreign company?
the tax works similar with the corporation, same as corporation. Tax rates or value-added tax run same as branch office, subsidiary, or Korean company. Tax rates.
We talked before about the tax when you have a bodin or cane. Sometimes it's better to, when you are alone, to keep the cane. And in which situation is better to move, to change your cane statute to bodin company. So
It's not easy to recommend in which step you need to change to 법인, but I think some of your business partner, Korean counterpart, or the transaction party might like it as 법인 from time to time because they think you're more stable if you have 법인. But there is no strict guideline that you need to convert in this period or not.
because when you have an individual, if you have some issue about the law, you are directly attacked.
Yeah.
So you're not protected. Or else you can use parliament like this. Corporate you can do.
Yeah. Corporate, you can be more protected up to your shares. And for corporation, it's easy to get funding by investment from your shareholder. So at the time, maybe if you want other person to invest in company, it's better to move on to the corporation. It's also an idea.
It's easy to change it.
No, it's totally closing the individual company and opening the corporation.
But you can't use the same name or you have to open, if you close a company, but sometimes when you create your company, you have already some.
At that time, let's say that I registered as ABC company, as an individual company. When I want to open a corporation, they will do the name check with the court registry will do the name check. If there is no same name existing, then you can use the same name.
So you can have same name for individual and corporate.
You can use the same name if there is no already registered.
For individual, you don't have to do the name check.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there'll be like 10 of the exact same company name, right? And
In
then
theory,
corporation, there can only be one.
Yeah. In theory, there can be only.
So
There can be
that's
same
why-
company's name.
So many.
In Canada, there's a website where you can search through name search online. You can see right away whether there's like similar names. In Korea, it's after like business registry.
There could be the 대법원 site, the Supreme Court site, but I haven't used it myself, so I cannot give you a clear answer for that. Okay, that's all I prepared. Thank you for attending my class. I will leave some of my name card here, so if there is anyone that needs it, please take one. Thank you very much.